Okay, thanks everybody for joining us here today. I think we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll certainly let others into the webinar as we continue. So thank you for being here for the very first Toolkit Tuesday webinar hosted by DriveOhio. I'm joined by Mary Welch-Sluter from Partnership for Innovation and Education here today. And Mary, would you like to say hello to the audience?
I would love to say hello to all the people who are both in our chat, but also those who are coming on board. So welcome, and we look forward to not only your attention but also your questions. So love your questions. Rich and I will be answering them either through the presentation and also at the very end.
For sure. Outstanding. Well, this will be sort of in a answering your questions format today. So we have preloaded some questions into our sort of planned remarks here, and we will certainly stick around as long as needed to answer questions that you might have. We would encourage you to put your questions into the chat. And in fact, let me just cover a couple quick housekeeping items as soon as I can get my slides to work. Pardon the IT interruption here. Let me try this again. Okay. So, as you may have noticed, this webinar is being recorded. That's so others can watch afterwards, including you. Any audio has been disabled for our participants, but if there's a need for back and forth discussion during the Q&A, we can hit a special button to get you unmuted if needed. But otherwise, we'd ask you submit your questions through the chat feature. If you're having trouble with the chat feature, hopefully you can at least do the raise your hand thing through Teams to let us know if there's any tech issues. And all recordings and slides will be shared at the DriveOhio website, drive.ohio.gov, and you should know how to get a hold of us if you have any other questions about that. With that, let's get started. So we're going to talk today about the DriveOhio Educator Toolkit. I know some in the audience may be familiar, others may not. So by the end of this webinar, you'll know more about what it is, and hopefully most of your questions will have been answered. And we will be glad to hear from you about what it is that you would like to know, and also we'd love to hear what type of work that you do. So as we're getting rolling here, if anybody wants to add in the chat a little bit of detail about the type of work that they do, whether that be your title or organization or the type of role you have, that helps us understand who's in the audience. So not required, but if you'd like to share that, feel free to do that in the chat as well. So we have been listening to a lot of feedback over the past year. So the DriveOhio Educator Toolkit was launched during the previous school year, the 23-24 year. Sorry, I always get my years mixed up at this time of year with the switch to the new school year. And so we've heard your feedback. We appreciate it. And we've also heard a lot of questions over the past year plus of engagement with educator friends around Ohio. So in today's webinar, we're going to do our best to answer questions while we roll out the features of the 2024 to 25 DriveOhio Educator Toolkit. And we'll try to highlight some of the new features for this year and answer your questions along the way. So with that, let's get into it. So a question we hear sometimes is what's happening with mobility tech in Ohio? And other times I'm just asked the question, what is smart mobility? What does that even mean? That is a fair question, right? It's a big fancy $10 word. What are we talking about with mobility? And what does it mean in Ohio? Well, here's part of our answer. So DriveOhio, as you might be aware, is an initiative of the Ohio Department of Transportation. And we have been created and continue to serve as the state's center for smart mobility or an advanced mobility innovation. And what does that look like? Well, we talk about electric vehicles and charging stations. We talk about advanced air mobility, which includes these things we call electric air taxis and drones and other terms you might have heard of that sort. We'll give some examples in a minute. And we talk about connected and automated vehicles that can sometimes handle some of the driving tasks for you with your assistance and connected by way of communicating with our infrastructure. So we've got examples of all that. This isn't going to be a deep dive into that subject, but you can check out our website to learn about all these things and follow us on social media. Also, we're doing our best to add more types of Smart Mobility 101 videos through our Instagram and other channels like that. So lots of ways you can learn more about the tech. Here's an example. This happened in Springfield just a couple weeks ago. Check this out. In for a landing. So that's the Black Fly electric air vehicle from Pivotal, one of several demonstrations that happened at the National Advanced Air Mobility Industry Forum in Springfield near Dayton just a few weeks ago. So there's a lot going on out in Springfield these days, and Dayton, and all around the state. So you may have heard of the announcement from Joby Aviation within the past year or so. They will be building these electric air taxis shown here in Dayton at a new manufacturing facility at the Dayton International Airport. They've already taken over the old post office facility, and they're putting subtractive and additive manufacturing facilities in there. Their latest announcement in Springfield a few weeks ago at that industry event said that they'll be soon hiring and ramping up production of parts in 2025, with full aircraft coming sometime after that. When they're fully up and running, 2,000 jobs in the Dayton region. Very exciting. Another exciting opportunity that was announced within the past, I'd say, 2 years, and is now actively hiring. Honda with LG announced a battery plant in Fayette County, and the location of that facility is kind of shown in this map here, the big red dot. Pretty equidistant from Dayton, Columbus, Chillicothe, and Cincinnati. And I just heard an update this morning from our friends at Ohio Means Jobs, and they are hiring. They are providing on-the-job training. They've got grants to help support all that. So there's a lot of activity happening. If you check out that website shown there, you can learn all about these smart mobility battery technology jobs that are now appearing in Ohio, not just in that location, but all around the state. So a lot of exciting momentum right now with electric vehicles and electric air taxis and all things electrification. So to acknowledge all of that and prepare for it and to stay ahead of the curve, the state of Ohio, through the Governor's Office of Workforce Transformation in collaboration with the Ohio Manufacturers Association, launched the Ohio Auto and Advanced Mobility Workforce Strategy. So all those jobs I just described, over 4,000 just for those two sites, plus many more, are being supported by this statewide strategy. You can go to workforce.ohio.gov to learn all about it. You can see what was published last year, but there is more happening every day. This is multiple state agencies, a whole kind of all of government initiative to support this section of the industry. So check out that website for more, and watch for more webinars later this year on that subject with OMA as a future guest. So that's just a quick snapshot of what's happening with mobility tech in Ohio. So let's start moving from tech speak to educator speak. So what's a toolkit? What is a toolkit all about, and how can I use it with my students? So for that question, I'm going to turn it over to Mary to talk about that.
Great. So hopefully everyone can hear me. So a toolkit basically is exactly what you would think. It's a bundled opportunity for teachers, for administrators, to essentially allow kids to better understand, students in the K-12 banded classroom, to better understand not only what the skill sets are, but what the jobs are out there. And in a minute, we'll sort of go through with the 4 components of the toolkit, specifically with DriveOhio. But I want to kind of go backward a little bit. So everyone saw those potential jobs, 4,000 jobs, just of those two employers. So just so everyone knows on here that those are for students who graduate from high school. Those jobs are for kids who can immediately graduate into those jobs, get pre-qualified in high school, and also for those individuals who might get a 2-year degree or 4-year degree. But more importantly, a lot of those jobs are for individuals, high school students who immediately graduate out of high school into those jobs, provided they have the skill sets that are provided not only through this toolkit, but through the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, through the credentials that they can receive in the classroom. So that's the exciting part to everyone on this call. These jobs are not figments of our imagination. These are for students who are immediately graduating out of Ohio high schools into these potential jobs. So anyway, the toolkit, 4 components, you'll see them. It's curriculum. So it's literally curriculum that's banded, grade banded, with content standards attached. You've got career connections. So what you're seeing right now are webinars featuring CEOs, CMOs, and CIOs and innovators here throughout the state of Ohio, looking at companies that are in the transportation industry. So everything we're talking about here, the resources. So we get a lot of discussions from administrators and educators. How can we implement these programs in our classrooms? We have the curriculum, we have the PD, professional development, as you'll see, another component of the toolkit, but we don't have resources. So if we need drones, or if we need ozobots, or any type of software, et cetera, for Formula One or whatever, how do we get that funding? And so the resources page is how can we help teachers get the funding that they may need in the classroom. Specifically, it's for classroom funding, not huge amounts of funding. So again, the toolkit, it's very standard, but we think pretty robust. Is curriculum, activity banded with content standards, career connections, webinars just like this that you can show to your students, professional development, so having it go through each of these different curriculi and having PD take teachers through and what is the curriculum, how do we present it to students, what are the resources necessary, and what's the end game, what's the end result, and is there a credential involved, and then resources, how do we get funding if need be to implement these programs within the classroom or after school or in summer programming.
Absolutely, all of the above. So we're as you can see here, we've got a QR code. You can use that to go directly to the toolkit if you haven't before. If you've previously registered, you should already have an email with a direct link that'll get you there. It's all free. Everything on the website is free. And we're over the next few minutes, we're just going to unpack each of those 4 buckets a little bit more, take a little deeper dive, and along the way, besides answering some questions, we'll talk about kind of what's new for this current school year. So with that, let's move into the next question. So what curriculum is available and what does it cost? We'll keep saying free. So I will emphasize that. What you see is free as far as the curriculum in particular, but all the other resources on the website. So this isn't exactly how the website looks, but this gives you a sense of some of the key features. And again, if you want to hop over to that website and look at it as we're talking, feel free. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout this webinar, go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll be sure to answer them as close to real time as we can during this webinar today. And so, as Mary mentioned, we've got grade band assignments for the different curriculum. So if you were to click on those different sections of the toolkit, you'll see the pieces of curriculum pop up that are applicable to that particular grade band. In some cases, you may have a curriculum that repeats itself in a few different locations, but as we'll talk about in a minute, even within those pieces of curriculum, we've offered different extension options, different ways to tailor this curriculum around those different grade bands. So that lends itself to primarily classroom use, but as Mary said, this is absolutely fair game for out of school time, after school programs. We'll have a webinar coming up in November that we haven't fully announced yet that'll include examples of library and after school network applications. So we've got a lot of different ways this curriculum can be used, and it's not just things that DriveOhio has published. On the left, that's more of what you see is the DriveOhio piece of the curriculum, but on the right, you can see a whole bunch of partners with more coming soon that have produced their own curriculum that lines up with this theme of advanced mobility. So Lego, for example, we'll talk about them a little later. InfoOhio has a whole collection on there that summarizes the DriveOhio curriculum, but then of course they've got other great resources out there. And through the PAST Foundation, collaboration on portable innovation labs, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to resources. So,
and then Rich,
yeah.
and I just want to let everyone know too, for all the teachers or administrators out there who want this experiential and immersive learning, I know also that the OSLN, Ohio STEM Learning Network, and a lot of other affiliated organizations like to do challenge projects. So again, some of what we're going to be showing you could be developed as a challenge project, something that could take a week or 2 to 3 weeks to essentially have kids go back to and again, put relevancy in whatever they're learning in the way of an immersive learning project. So that's what you're going to be also seeing coming up, or what kind of challenge projects could you do within your school, and what could we be doing in the future that shows authentic learning in Ohio so that kids can better understand what's happening in Ohio, how can we represent the content that they're learning in the classroom, and then how can we develop it as an after-school challenge project.
Absolutely. And here's one of the examples. So the cardboard vertiport challenge was introduced during the previous school year. We have updated that curriculum. So it now has two different versions, one that we call condensed and one that we call extended. And so the condensed version is generally designed to be completed within 1 to 2 hours. Even that's flexible, but we've seen this done. The first time we debuted this, it was on a basketball court at a summer camp for about an hour with some, call it third through fourth grade students. We have seen this used at the middle school and even high school level, age level over that same time period, but also we've seen it used for much longer periods of time. So, you can imagine adding different types of materials besides cardboard. We've started talking about 3D printing and balsa wood and other types of prototyping materials. And in this piece of curriculum and at least one other this year, we've now got standards alignment details in the back of the curriculum, so you can start to look through not just technology or science standards, but we've seen educators using social studies, community impact, and topics like that. If you were to ask your students through an extension to do some sort of business plan or something, now you could get into English language arts and writing standards and business and other topics like that. So a lot of different ways that this can be stretched and extended. So that's, but you may be sitting here wondering, what is a vertiport? What is that? Well, the answer is in the curriculum, but I'll give you the answer too. It's an airport for a drone, or an airport or landing pad for an electric air vehicle. So in that picture there in the background is an actual real life vertiport in Springfield. So it was neat to have students building in that environment as well. So that's just a quick explanation of that cardboard vertiport challenge, and that can add into this other piece of curriculum we call the Smart City Adventure. And we chose the word adventure to inspire students to have fun and to use their imagination and really to kind of choose an adventure. So this was created, launched a year ago, updated this year. We've got the condensed version published that can be extended. We'll eventually publish a more extended version of it. Again, we've seen this used in a multi-week period of time. We've seen it used in a much shorter period of time. We've started to add some examples into the curriculum. So you can see here, we gave a few different examples where that prototype example there, for example, we had a third grade educator tell us, I really appreciate what the original authors did in Reynoldsburg City Schools who published their Smart Reynoldsburg example, but I've only got 45 minutes a week for about 3 or 4 weeks. No problem. She adapted that curriculum to incorporate design thinking, to have students do prototypes. We were able to pop in and see their final solutions and give them some feedback. It was a lot of fun. On the left side, you'll see we've got activities and examples embedded in here. So if you're trying to figure out where to get started, maybe you want to lean into the topic of electric vehicle charging stations. Here's one example of the way you could do that. We're looking to crowdsource this and keep hearing from people of how they could use it. So this list will only grow, but those are just a few activities and examples. And likewise, we've got extensions for different grade bands. So if you're working with younger students, here's some suggested lines of questioning. For older students, here's some more complex questions you can ask them, and different ways you can stretch the curriculum. So that's just a quick snapshot, and Mary, feel free to add anything you'd like on that.
Yeah, no, I'd want to add one other thing. So most people know me, we develop cases. That's how my organization, Partnership for Innovation Education, first started case development. So challenges, cases, essentially authentic learning. And I want everyone to pay close attention to that extension where it talks about in the bottom, where you allow kids to better understand these skill sets in project management, engineering, product design, marketing, communications, operations, and maintenance, since those are great ways to highlight kids' strengths, whether they're great with numbers or with marketing or great at presentation and communication skill sets, banding kids together to develop a solution within the challenge. If they're logistics or whatever it might be, it really allows kids to better understand. I had one individual in a classroom project that we had who was great at math, and he was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with. I love math. I think I'm going to be a high school teacher. And I'm like, you could do that, or you could become the CEO or chief information officer, chief marketing officer. I said, having those math skill sets can go across any type of job or role and responsibility. So I think those are the things that you can really let kids better understand, that these are real roles that they have real skill sets for. And if they understand what their skills are in eighth or ninth or sixth grade, then it really allows them to build on those skills as they get older in school. And these challenges can really help you develop that for your kids and better understand what they like to do. And it's just a great way for kids to become empowered, as all of you on this call know, that you get much better attendance, much better academic achievement. If your kids feel that they're empowered, you build relevancy in their learning, and that they see something that they're learning, that it's not abstract, but it's concrete as to how they can apply it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we enjoy about this type of curriculum in particular is, we talk about the career connections content, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but it's not like these are, well, silos, so to speak, right? It's not like you have to go only to the career connections section of the toolkit to experience hands-on career exploration. It's built into this curriculum. So all those other, think of those other resources we'll talk about in a minute as a supplement to this, whether it's videos, recordings, infographics, things like that. It's all, that's why we call it a toolkit, right? Tools in the toolbox, ways that you can mix and match, pick and choose. So this isn't a take it or leave it. It's meant to be sort of a pretty robust set of resources you can pick from. And we're always looking for feedback on all of this, by the way. So please, today and after today, keep sending us ideas. And if there's some way that you're using this that's different from how it's published, we'd love to hear about it, because guess what? You get the credit for that. We are very careful to share credit across all this. This is not just us at DriveOhio developing this content. Speaking of partners and collaborators, so our friends at the University of Cincinnati and the Gaskins Foundation helped develop a whole package of curriculum around the topic of connected and automated vehicle education. Some of this started with some resources that were originally developed by the U.S. Department of Transportation, and then the Ohio Department of Transportation, through our student research program, funded 2 different teams of graduate students at UC. They came up with some awesome stuff that you see here, whether it's using Raspberry Pi and Arduino to build a remote controlled car that could even include some LiDAR with a test track behind there. We've given you the instructions on how to build the test track. We've got, students over there shown testing out these other connected traffic signals and other types of technologies. There's a lot of different tools in these different pieces of curriculum. You can explore all that again through the curriculum section of our website. And I expect we'll have our friends from UC on a future episode to take you on an even deeper dive into that amazing curriculum that they've often used at summer camps, but can also be used in classrooms.
We actually used it at our 21st Century program this past summer. So we can testify to both the pre and post assessments that the kids loved it. They understood the career skills, and they understood some of the industry opportunities for the future.
That's right. And that's a great example of how we work with educators all around the state that have been using these things. And we do our best to publish as much of those great insights as we can. But when in doubt, if you just have questions for us and you're not sure where to get started, just reach out. And we can do a 30-minute or longer, Teams or Zoom call with you just to talk through it and give you some suggestions. So with that, we're going to keep moving through our questions here. We've got shifting to the top, expanding on the topic of career awareness. How can this toolkit support career awareness, exploration, and planning? And those words were chosen carefully, because you can see on the bottom of this picture here, there's different stages, right? And that comes right out of the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce Career Connections framework. And so we are doing our very best to support all of those spectrums of career awareness, exploration, and planning. What you see here on the screen are just some of the resources available through our Career Connections section of the DriveOhio Educator Toolkit website. So if you were to go to that section of the toolkit, if you were to explore that careers and smart mobility section, in a moment I'll show a few of those infographics that are available. We've also got a whole host of videos available on there. We've heard even from some of our friends at libraries and other after-school programs, they've pulled some of those videos to weave into some of their activities. So there's different ways you can engage with that. I'll show more examples in a minute. We have a student advisory council. That was a new pilot initiative last year, led by one of our high school interns, who's now one of our college interns. And so we have opportunities for students interested in policy career pathways to explore that. Of course, we've got the Toolkit Tuesday series that you're experiencing here live right now. And the Auto and Advanced Mobility Program Design Guide is a resource that was recently published by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. So let's zoom in a little bit on smart mobility career pathways. This is the latest example of a series of infographics we're continuing to develop. This will continue to adapt a little bit and hopefully become even more interactive over time. But if you think back to the tech talk at the beginning of this webinar, we talked about electric vehicles, air mobility like drones and electric air taxis, we've got connected vehicles. There are all sorts of different careers you can explore. All the engineering disciplines are applicable. We picked a few examples here. In the middle, you've got these sort of hidden careers, just like Mary was talking earlier about trying on career pathways like program manager and social media and all these different almost unexpected careers that maybe you've heard of but didn't associate with these technologies, or maybe you haven't heard of the careers at all. GIS analyst, global information systems, that's a very lucrative job that's hiring. And we can help students explore what that means. It's all about collecting data and information and surveying and using drones as a tool in your toolbox, that kind of thing. And the skilled trades along the bottom, all super important and foundational to this work. And we've got connections to all of that. So this is again part of to support conversations you can have with your students, whatever age they may be. We've got other details on specific spotlights for electric vehicles. Here's just a few examples of some emerging jobs that are being reimagined because of these types of technologies, especially battery engineer. I mean, that is a huge in-demand field right now, and you can see it's all around the state. Same with we love our acronyms, uncrewed aircraft systems or drones. We talk about pilots, surveyors, technicians to repair these things. We've got all sorts of different tools and credentials to go around this. And so I mentioned
and Rich, I'm just
Go ahead.
going to throw at the age of 16, if any of you are teachers, by the age of 16, your students can become accredited and qualified to be a drone pilot, a ground drone pilot. So they can take the test. It's worth 6 points in the IRC's industry recognized credentials, the ODU, but also more importantly, immediately your students can do a lot of great opportunity to work for some companies at age 16 with their drone. So again, it's a great entry level opportunity, drone technology, whether it's law enforcement, insurance, energy, news, etc. If a student can become a drone pilot, they have a lot of opportunities open to them starting at age 16, and a lot with the school itself. You could do grounds oversight or topography or whatever it might be. A lot of our school districts utilize their student drone pilots in ways that a commercial company would utilize its drone pilots. So again, great way for kids to start on a career immediately and get credit for it. And everybody knows here, a 6-point credential, you can get almost $1,300 per 6-point credential from the Department of Education and Workforce.
That's right. I think you've heard a preview of a future episode of this webinar where we could take an even deeper dive into how to start a drone program or how to accelerate a program that may already exist at your school. So we're always glad to jump on a call and talk about that, share what we've heard. And we're not the experts either, by the way. The folks out there doing the work, they're the experts. I mean, Mary, you're an expert. I'm an aggregator. That's what I do, right? At DriveOhio, we collect this information, right? So that's what we try to do, is spread the word. And speaking of more resources, so here's through the Department of Education and Workforce. I mentioned they produced this program guide. It's kind of, think of this as version 1. It's got some examples of credential startup kits and ways that you can get going in this career pathway area. I've already seen some draft previews of more content that'll go in there. So watch, like it says, watch for updates, learn more. And I do expect we'll have them on a future episode as well to talk even more about this subject. And diving just a little further into the subject, it's been mentioned at least once already, industry recognized credentials. How does this toolkit align with those industry recognized credentials? Here's some examples. So as Mary mentioned, the certified drone pilot, 6 points already on the list. For those students that are younger, they can check out the trust. I'll call it a credential, I suppose. It's not a full-blown industry recognized credential, but it is training that you can take as young as, I think, 13 is what I've heard.
13.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And then to get all the way to full 12 points in the aviation pathway, you can look at any of or all of these USI certification levels. I was just on a webinar that they hosted a week or so ago, where they talked about all these different pathways you can use for both industry recognized credentials and shown at the top there, tech cred. So educators are 100% eligible to get a credential and then have their school reimbursed for the cost through the tech cred program, as long as that credential is on the tech cred list. So if you hadn't heard about that already, definitely check out that option. It's a great way to get your professional development paid for by the state of Ohio, which is great. On the left, electric vehicle fundamentals is a new 6-point credential that's on the list. Mary and her team, through an industry sector partnership, are working to build some teacher resources that'll be free to help prep for that and get aligned with that program through Tooling U. So stay tuned. And this is all lined up with the auto and advanced mobility workforce strategy I mentioned earlier. That team is hard at work scanning the horizon for other emerging credentials to make sure that more gets added to this list. So this is what's on the list today. It's a very dynamic process. Watch for more updates over the coming year. So a few more questions as we move towards any open Q&A. So start thinking about any questions you have that we haven't answered. And if you have them, please put them in the chat. So what professional development resources are available for educators? So you're experiencing one of them right now. Toolkit Tuesday is kind of this year's collection of webinars that you can use for contact hours to support your professional development. We've also got some online e-learning resources shown here. The Smart Mobility Training Academy includes information about our ambassador program. That's a whole other topic about ways you can get students involved with earning volunteer hours. We're actively reimagining that ambassador program. So stay tuned for some updates later this year on ways that you can get your students involved with some work-based learning hours to help us evaluate and develop new curriculum. So that's a preview of what's coming, and watch for some more news on that later this school year. We've also got uncrewed aerial systems, or UAS, e-learning courses available, again, through our ODOT Ohio Local Technical Assistance Program platform. You can check out our Toolkit website for that information. And that UAS e-learning can be used to get ready to take that Part 107 exam that we talked about earlier. So just a few of the examples of what's available for PD. So the resource question: what if I don't have STEM equipment? I love drones, but I don't have them, or I want to do coding with robots. Again, what if I don't have them? How can I get more resources? We are always working to help answer that question, and here's a few ways we're working to address that. Portable innovation labs from the PAST Foundation. I'll talk about that in just a minute, so we'll come back to that. But let's talk about these other two examples, the 21st Century Community Learning Centers and a list of other grants from Envision Ed Plus. Mary, would you like to talk about the 21st Century?
Yeah, so we're the fiscal agent and program manager for a 21st Century Community Learning Center grant here in Cincinnati at Aiken New Tech High School. And essentially, I tell people that it's a vertically integrated program. You know, we design and we create the curriculum, and then we deploy after school. And we partner with the educators who are there during the school day, and then they help develop it after school. So from an equity perspective, we're developing that loop. Essentially, we're developing after school programs that get implemented during the school day, and then some of the school day gets implemented after school. So it's a great opportunity for kids to learn about drone technology, or Formula One, and EV engine development, or vertiport development. And it's for anybody on this call who's thinking about a 21st Century Learning Center grant or wants to develop it, please get in touch with me. I also sit on the board. Vanessa on the board for the 21st Century in Columbus. And so again, it's a very robust opportunity after school. And it's that much more important if you can involve the in-school educators and the in-school administrators in your after-school program, because it's that much more valuable if you can develop after school what's happening in school. Again, it's a circle, right? And if you can complement and reinforce, then the kids have a much better opportunity not only see what those workforce opportunities are, but get those credentials, and then engage educators in career development and workforce development. So again, if anyone has more information, I believe applications are in the spring. So please get in touch with me.
Yes, and the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce website does have a lot more detail on that program. If you go to our toolkit and go to the resources and funding section of the DriveOhio Educator Toolkit, you'll find a direct link to that information page with more details. From what I remember, they have an annual workshop, at least for current recipients, and I'm sure they're glad to schedule some one-on-one time to chat with you about potential applications. So it's a great program, and glad to spotlight that.
And it's over a 5-year program. So the 21st Century is great. You have to apply for it each year, but it's a 5-year program at $850,000 over that 5 years. So it really can, when you talk about resources, you really can develop opportunities with resources, with educators after school.
That's right. The list of other grants shown there, Envision Ed Plus has kindly shared with us, so we share it with you, a whole website full of other grant ideas. That link is also on our toolkit website. So if you just go to the other grants available section of the resources and funding area of our toolkit website, you will find a direct link to that Envision Ed Plus grants list. They do update it pretty often, so I would encourage you to check that out and get ideas. And we're always open to new ideas from partners. I know in the past we've teamed up with some educational service centers on grants that they're able to obtain. So you may work with your local ESC, maybe in coordination with their business advisory council when possible, to have collaboration on maybe some new sources of federal money or other types of funding available. So always looking for new ideas there, and we'll share any that we can. So those are the main questions that we answered. I did see one come in through the chat that I wanted to spotlight, and I'll leave this preview up of our future webinars while I answer that. So the question in the chat was, can students access the drone e-learning modules? And my answer would be yes. The fine print is that any user of that e-learning does have to create what's called a MyODOT account, which is free, and there's instructions on the website for how to do that. So depending on how complex that gets for the student, they may need a little help setting that account up, but it's a free resource that's available to anyone that accesses that link. So that's definitely available. And if you have any questions about how to do that, you can reach out to us directly. There should be also some help emails on that e-learning website if you need any help getting access to that content for any age. So as a way of kind of previewing some of our upcoming webinars, I'm also going to expand on a few more resources and curriculum that we've kind of hinted at here with the PASS Foundation, with LEGO Education, and with the Ohio Manufacturers Association. So let's talk about that just a little bit as we start to wrap up today's webinar. And for starters, portable innovation labs. So the curriculum we were talking about earlier with drones, vertiports, the Smart City Adventure, and even some autonomous delivery, the PASS Foundation has this amazing program called Portable Innovation Labs. You'll hear all about it at our next webinar on September 17th, but the quick preview of it is that it is once again free, and not only does it include equipment, it includes curriculum, but now it also includes free equipment that you can borrow for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, available throughout the state. Pickup points in Columbus, Akron, and Dayton currently, but more on the way soon. So you can learn more by scanning that QR code, and you can hear all about it if you join us on September 10th, either live or recorded afterwards. We'll talk with Bree from the PASS Foundation about those portable innovation labs and what comes with them. So that's one example. Another example of some partner resources, our friends at LEGO Education have gone through all of their amazing curriculum and built a list. I feel like it's 3 pages worth of different line items of different curriculum that you can click through that tie into smart mobility in different ways, whether it's a helicopter, a renewable energy, tracking packages. Those are the 3 examples shown here, but there's a lot more. I'd encourage you to check that out on our toolkit website, and we'll have our friends from LEGO with us on October 1st to talk all about it in much more detail and hear how you can use that. I've got my LEGO education kits sitting at my desk, and we will soon be building them. And that's one of the ways we want to get our ambassadors to work, helping us to reimagine how these lessons plans can further extend into smart mobility. I mentioned the Ohio Manufacturers Association. They've been an outstanding partner on the statewide workforce strategy. They've built this manufacturing competency model that talks about all the skills you need to succeed in manufacturing. And it's only when you get to the very top of the pyramid that it starts to get industry sector specific within whether it's semiconductor, aerospace, electric vehicles, batteries. So this is a really robust resource. that I couldn't do justice to in a short few minutes here. So that's why we're going to have OMA join us during Manufacturing Month on October 15th to talk all about it. So Jessica Borza will be our tour guide to walk us through the Ohio Manufacturing Competency Model and talk about all the other great resources they've got, like Making Ohio, which is a great website that has all sorts of resources you should check out. So you'll hear all about those partner resources when we get together in Manufacturing Month to talk about that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm going to make sure we've answered all the remaining questions in the chat. I see a request for a direct link to the toolkit page. So yeah, one detail is if you follow that link, it will ask you to do a free registration just to put in your name and contact information just so we can share updates for you. If you have other questions about how to access it, you can email us here and we'd be glad to answer that for you. And if you have any other questions right now, feel free to put them in the chat while we're together here. And if you think of questions later, you can always email us directly at workforce@drive.ohio.gov. Mary, any comments you want to add on things we've missed here today? So
yeah,
far?
no, I'd love to. So for anyone who's on this call, if you said, wow, I've got this great partner at my school or my ESC, I'd love to have them be engaged in a challenge or something like that, and it's aligned to what we're talking about, contact Rich, me and Rich, because that's how this Formula One program came out. DriveOhio has an alliance with several partners across Ohio. Honda is one of them. And as probably all of you know, they actually create the engine for Red Bull and several other of the Formula One cars. And there's something called Formula E. And so we're utilizing a Formula E program so the kids can better understand electric vehicle, the engine development, what is EV, and how is, alternate energy opportunities, robust here in the state of Ohio, and all the different suppliers that develop these opportunities. So we're working with academic institutions and high schools and developing this program with Honda and a host of other partners. And it's going to be part of the toolkit, the EV toolkit coming up. So again, this toolkit opportunity here at DriveOhio is going to be much bigger in the next couple of years. There won't be, I would say, just what we're looking at right now, but it's going to be more opportunities, more credentials, so that all of you who might be interested in transportation, will be able to direct your students to more of these toolkits and the careers that are linked to them. So pretty exciting, again, immersive, authentic learning that spans and bridges both in classroom and after school with partners in your own backyard. So again, anybody on this call has a partner that they think could play a role in something like this or could be a partner, please contact us because we would love to see if they would like to participate in some way, whether it's a webinar, creating a challenge, whatever it might be. If they're a great partner to a school, we're interested in learning more.
Absolutely. That's always been one of our goals, is to add more and more employers to the conversation here, because that's the best workforce development program is the one that directly connects talent with jobs. That's our goal here. And sometimes we're playing the long game when we're visiting with a kindergarten classroom, and that's okay. We enjoy those just as much as our interactions with our friends in higher education, which, by the way, we will soon be publishing a higher education toolkit. So watch for news on that later this year. So I feel like we've covered the questions I saw in the chat. I will just give it one more second in case
There's one more being typed, it looks like.
Okay.
Jennifer B.
Yeah, we had a few questions about access. So when in doubt, you can always send us an email, and we will. I think unless there's other questions at this time, we're going to wrap this one up, and we're going to hope you join us at the next webinar coming up in a few weeks. So watch for details on that. And we thank you for joining us today. We appreciate everyone who's collaborated with us, and we're looking forward to a great school year. So thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.